It's the ability to understand and effectively apply the power of our own emotions and engage with the emotions of others so we can experience higher levels of relationship, communication, collaboration, and productivity.
What's going on, everybody? I'm John Stamper and excited to be back with you for another episode of The Compass with Dr. Matthew Norton. And Dr. Norton is doing such great work in really guiding growth through coaching. And so we're going to continue another episode here on The Compass. Today's episode I've got here, I'm excited about this one. Like, we hear a little bit about kind of like physical agility. We don't always hear about emotional agility. So today's episode is improving emotional agility as the key, Dr. Norton is going to talk about, for increasing profitability and relationship success. So there's a lot there. I'm excited to get into it. Matthew, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. And you're right, there is a lot there. So we got stuff to talk about, John.
I love it. All right. Well, in true fashion, let's dive right in. I think the first thing that, for those of you that are watching, that I'd love to have you kind of get into is defining exactly that. Like, what is emotional agility? And I think more importantly, why is it so important?
Yeah, let me kind of reverse the order maybe of my answer on that, and just to tell you that I am absolutely convinced in my years of working on this that this is one of the most important topics in business and life overall, John. I mean, emotions drive people at work and home, and then it's people that are driving performance in the workplace. And the research evidence on this is vast. I mean, we could talk about it for hours, and we won't, but we could. And there are so many experts that have been talking about the significance, the power of this topic. And one of them is Daniel Goleman. So I just wanted to share something of his here before we get too far in. He said that as much as 80% of adult success comes from emotional agility. 80%. I mean, that's a big percentage. He goes on to say that what really matters for success, character, happiness, and lifelong achievement is a definite set of emotional skills and not just cognitive abilities. And then we could go way back to Vincent van Gogh in the 1800s if we want to show that this is not a new topic. He said, let's not forget that emotions are the great captains of our lives, and we obey them without realizing it. And I know that doesn't sound very, I don't know, we want to push that away probably, that we're obeying our emotions. But from my experience, I think there's a lot of truth there. And then we can come back to current in a more recent study where leaders said that 76% of their business issues were on the people relational side, and only 24% involve finance and technical. So to me, that sets the stage, sets a tone for how critically important of a collection of skill sets that this really is. So let's talk about that then. To answer your question on what is emotional agility, I've played with so many ways of trying to describe it, and here's kind of what I've distilled it down to. It's the ability to understand and effectively apply the power of our own emotions and engage with the emotions of others so we can experience higher levels of relationship, communication, collaboration, and productivity, all things that we really want. So emotions are either propelling us forward so we can grow, contribute, relate with others, and succeed at a higher level, or emotions are sabotaging our purpose, our peace, and our progress in the world. And it's typically doing some combination of all of those things. So emotions are dramatically impacting the outcomes we receive. But here's the problem. The majority of people have never received emotional training. It's just not come up. Nobody in our lives, in our families growing up, really probably owned that well enough or thought that's something that actually could be taught or trained. Maybe it's taught or trained pro or con by behavior, but never with intentionality. And it never really happens in school either, unless you happen to go into a very narrow range of careers that would actually address that. So people lack sufficient emotional skills based upon the fact that nobody has really helped them improve them.
So, in the spirit of the glass half full, which I know is the way that you like to live your life, and I am going to go back to the Van Gogh example. Uh,
Okay.
it can feel scary, but I think the positive kind of direction I'm going here, Matthew, is that I feel like that's encouraging with what you're saying because like there are certain technical skills that somebody may not be good at or might take years to be able to, get better at, or in some cases may never have. And so that in some regards could be
Right.
discouraging. I feel like that if the emotional piece, if you can number one, become aware of it, but then
Yes.
number two, that is something that you can learn how to manage. I feel like that's encouraging for helping you get to where you want to go. And so the bridge to the next thing I wanted to ask you was in regards to something I know that you're very passionate about that you have been helping people with, and that is your assessments, right? Your core four assessments. So
Right.
along those lines, can we measure this emotional agility? Like, is it something that you could give somebody a baseline so that you could provide them some encouragement with training, which I know you're going to get into. But so let's go there. Like, let's talk the assessment side, and can it be measured? And if so, what are some of the results that you've seen over time?
Yeah. Good question. So yes, let me just speak to what you said first, which is yes, it is. There is room for optimism. This is something where we can improve. We are not born with a certain amount of potential in this area, and we're stuck there. So this, with some intentionality and a plan, like a lot of things in life, this can improve. So personally, I've conducted multiple hundreds of emotional agility assessments. I'm not sure how many that is at this point, but it's a lot over the last 26 years. I've correlated the results in workplaces with leader team effectiveness, with respect to business success, staff turnover, levels of stress, also in people's personal lives with respect to their marital and family difficulties, because these things, there's nothing specifically work or business or personal life about this. It is just life with people, right? It's life with ourselves and life with people. So lower emotional agility shows up over and over again to sabotage leader effectiveness and the workplace culture that people are increasingly knowing that they want to create, uh, as well as personal relationships. So, as far as what those skills are that we are measuring, you're right, in that emotional agility assessment piece, then there's five of them. The first three are intrapersonal within yourself. Uh, and then there's two that are interpersonal between you and other people. And these things are playing out all the time, for better or worse, all day long, every day, uh, throughout our lifetimes, whether we're aware of it or not. So, aware of it or not is a good place to begin, because that first skill set is called self awareness and impact. It's back to kind of what you were saying. If we can shine a light on something, we have a much better ability to actually do something about it to improve it. If we don't see it, then we're kind of at a loss right out of the gate. So self awareness and impact says, can I, how aware can I be of my own mental emotional state, and do I see the impact it's having on the people around me, and on my ability to advance initiatives I'm working on, to be able to move goals forward. So self awareness and impact is first, then self management that says, okay, depending on how aware I am or not, what am I now? What am I willing and able to do to redirect my emotional state towards something more productive, more harmonious, if where I am currently is not that? And then the third one is inspired engagement, which really says, where's our motivation coming from? Is it coming from internally because we're inspired, we have a passionate drive, something we're excited about, something we want to express or bring into the world? something we want to make better? Or is it externally? Are we externally motivated by a carrot or a stick? There's going to be a cost if I don't do something, or I'm going to get a reward if I do something. So this is really looking at the emotional drivers behind motivation. The fourth one, which is the first one that's interpersonal, is compassionate understanding, which relates to empathy, the ability to, and willingness. Again, it's not always ability, it's ability and willingness to put myself in somebody else's shoes. What would it be like to be them in this moment? What might they be wrestling with? Underneath the behavior that we like or don't like, what might they be feeling or struggling with? And then the fifth and last one is relationship influence. What am I willing to do to reach across and make something better for somebody else? Kind of also speaks to networking and expanding scopes of influence. And the truth is that most people would benefit from, in a significant way, from improving at least one or two of those emotional skills. And for some people, it's all five. And we can measure all of this with the People Plus Purpose Emotional Agility Assessment.
So one of the things that you talked about was shining a light on some of these issues. And as you know, Matthew, a phrase that we've all heard for many years is success leaves clues. I wanted to ask you, if emotional agility challenges leads clues, and what is a good way to tell if a leader or somebody on the team might be having some challenges with this? Like, what type of clues do they leave behind to where one would know that they're struggling with this a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Because without some clues, just like a lot of things in life, without some symptoms, then we think we're fine. I feel fine. I think I'm doing okay at this. And it's amazing to see the distinction between what people are intuitively sensing about their emotional skill sets versus what an assessment can reveal sometimes. But to even get to that point, like to even do an assessment, to even bother, then you could listen to what we were saying in terms of what some of the research is showing. But yeah, what are some of the symptom clues? Excessive fear or worry, uh, regular overwhelm, um, feeling frustrated and angry more often than you might like, possibly more apathetic and or depressed. Those are good clues. Relationship conflict is another one, whether that's at home or work. If I'm not doing so well with the other people around me, uh, then my own emotional agility is almost always going to be a factor there. It could show up as lack of progress in your work for some of the reasons, because some of the stress states associated with lower emotional agility kind of keep us from focusing, keep us from being as creative or delivering on our potential. So difficulty with focus or motivation, lack of fulfillment. Sometimes, no matter how hard we're working, um, or can't sustain certain things, there's a lack of fulfillment piece, lessened joy, lessened peace or happiness. Maybe a sense of insufficient progress toward our goals and dreams could be another one. Um, High team member drama or high turnover, so that maybe we just don't have the retention of people around us. People are fleeing from us, I guess, maybe in some way. So that could be a clue that we might be part of the problem. So there's a broad range of them, but I think that's a good overview.
Hearing you go through this list, I'm sure you hear it all the time. We're all seeing it, right, in businesses and just, I think, in life in general, right? There are a lot of people that are managing through this, and which, I mean, you mentioned, I mean, it's just, I think in the opening stats that you shared, like just how important it is to really understand this. So I want to move towards the coaching aspect of this, right? I mean, that's kind of the whole idea of this podcast, is to really help people guide their growth through coaching, utilize coaching to do that. So I think you've set a really good kind of table for what it is, what are some ways to identify it. So let's talk a little bit about how you're helping clients with this, but then more importantly, like when you do, the impact that it is having. So I think in general terms, right, helping people get through just some of those things that you listed that
Yeah.
could be very detrimental to performances in all area of their lives. I'm sure there's going to be positive impact, but I'd love to have you share some specific examples of like through the coaching process, like the differences that are being made when people know the ones acknowledge this, they measure it, and then they work on it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. It is really my favorite. I've of all the different coaching topics and experiences that I've had over the last 16 years, it's become clear to me this is my favorite. And I think because it gets more to the core a lot of times, especially in working with leaders for kind of who they are, where they're stuck, where blind spots might be, um, old habit patterns that are just not working. So and when people take an assessment then, and that could be just with a business leader, it can be sometimes a couple in a marriage, it could be full teams, and we kind of compile the scores. One thing as I do is I don't share these, like when whole teams do them, I'm not sharing that out with the whole team. We do share the other assessment results because those are really more strengths based elements for how we can work better together, contributing everybody's greatest strengths. This is a little more personal, the emotional agility piece. It's a little, I mean, I can imagine some people listening that are thinking, okay, this is maybe more than I want to reveal even. There is a vulnerability associated with letting people peer into your emotional skill sets. I think it's important to be able to say, it's okay that I'm not masterful at this. I've been working on this 26 years. And I was telling a client earlier that just yesterday, I kind of, with my wife wasn't delivering my best emotional agility performance. So I try to be honest about that no matter how much time I've worked on it, I'm so much better. And if you asked my wife, she would say I was, but it's one of those things throughout a lifetime, I think, where we can always improve. And that's how I look at it. Can we be honest, be willing to be honest enough with ourselves and such that we can grow. But when am I asked about how this is playing out in the benefits? I've got a lot of client testimonials on this recently because I'm going to tell you about a program that we're just about to launch here in a minute, um, but in reaching out to different clients, asking them about their experiences, just recently, one person came back and said that, and this is a quote from them, I've owned a healthcare business for 14 years, and the biggest challenge for me as a business owner has been managing my emotions and those of my team as they relate to the stresses of the practice. I've learned from Matthew that emotional agility is critical to success in any business and has helped me gain the skills and clarity on how this impacts me personally and professionally. Being able to see how my emotions affect others and better identify the emotions of those around me has allowed me to become a better leader and clinician. Being more self-aware has transferred over into my personal life, and I feel that I'm becoming a better husband and father as well. So, and that's kind of a big deal for this person. This is a very task-oriented individual that would be on my list of least likely in general to probably sign up to talk about anything emotional. He's not oriented that way. And yet, as he's walked into this and trusted and been willing to be vulnerable, it's changing the game for him and the stresses that he faces in his very high intensity practice, as well as the nature of the stress levels with the team around him. And so it's really been a big deal. And there are so many other professionals and business owners that struggle here. And the business owners are often, or professionals, doctors, lawyers, I mean, a lot of different people that I coach are, their team members often have higher emotional agility than they do. And so I've thought about that, and it relates to how just being smart isn't enough intellectually. It's where have they applied their energy and their improvements in life. A lot of times it's been technical skill sets and knowledge acquisition, right? So there's that's why I believe there's so much room for improvement.
So you dropped something a little while ago about a program that I'm not going to let you get away with. Makes total sense. I'm excited. I mean, I think it's very apparent for whether you're watching this or you're listening to this on the Compass podcast audio. Very apparent, Matthew, that this is something that you've done a lot of work on, a lot of research on. And so, yeah, let's talk about that program that you're launching and how you've tied this all together. I think more importantly, to actually help these people that you're talking about.
Yeah. Emotional agility, because I speak to stress a lot uh, in the workplace, leaders, teams, and spills over into the personal lives too, because there really is no, I mean, I think if we're really honest, that the idea of somehow keeping our personal lives completely separate from who we are as human beings in a workplace. I mean, I understand the idea of trying to keep your issues out, personal issues out of the work environment, but who we are and what we wrestle with shows up wherever we are, right? So, but emotional agility coaching shows up as part of a larger coaching framework a lot of times for leaders and teams that I do. But because it's such an issue for so many people, I just felt like I need to make this more attainable, more easily accessible, I guess, for people as an initial approach. And so I would love to invite all the listeners to join me for this new program, which is a 30-day emotional agility breakthrough to a better work and home life program. So a 30-day program that where the absolute intention, and I want to say guarantee, that if the person or the team, because team members could all get to be a part of this, if they'll play full on, I could pretty much guarantee that there's going to be a business and life breakthrough in this. It's $97, just a one-time payment of $97. It includes the emotional agility assessment, which is normally 47. You get a report, a 16, 17-page report that goes with that. You'll get training guides for all 5 of those emotional agility skills, and then 2 60-minute live Zoom group coaching calls that we will record and make the recordings available, but have Q&A to be able to truly resolve some of these issues that are going on. So that's basically, you can go to peoplepluspurpose.com, and it's /30-day EA breakthrough, 30-day EA breakthrough, and you can get the details and join us.
Awesome. So before we wrap, I know with the work that you've done, you have some real life research that you can share with everybody as we close out this episode. I just want to kind of bring in just some 2 cents on how working through this and getting better at this. And like you talked about, like signing up for that program, knowing a little bit more about yourself is going to correlate and help you on the business side. Like there is a big trend right now, Matthew. There's a lot of business owners that I follow and creators that I follow. And when you look at like their success trajectory, there's a common thread. Many of them have made the commitment to be vulnerable. And so I know there was a time in business and in many professions where, like you mentioned, I mean, stepping out of your comfort zone, being vulnerable, not to mention telling hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people on social media or on your YouTube channel, some of the things that you struggled with would be like a huge no-no. Well, those days are gone. And so I think what's exciting about what you're doing is there's, I'm sure, real life research of what you've experienced, but there really is anecdotal research as well. Like we're seeing, business owners lean into this and talk about it. And I think it's really exciting, right? Because I think it opens the doors for people that are struggling with this to know that, listen, once you can kind of assess where you are, get some coaching on it, future's bright. So I think it's a good place to wrap.
Yeah, I mean, there's experiential data there. I mean, I could sit and talk for hours about what clients are dealing with and how they're coming out the other side of actually focusing on in coaching work in these areas. I wanted to just, for anybody who's yet unconvinced, uh, there's so much data that I just thought we could end with, with a little bit of a list. I mean, lists can be boring just to cite research results, but I thought for just a couple of minutes, I could share, these are some other conclusions that have been arrived at. that might be meaningful. So, according to Dave Lennox, who is an executive VP for American Express Financial Advisors, he said that emotional competence is the single most important personal quality that each of us must develop and access to experience a breakthrough in life. That's why this is so relevant as an aside from my work, because that's what I'm focusing on is breakthroughs in business and life for people. He says only through managing our emotions can we access our intellect and our technical competence. An emotionally competent person performs better under pressure. And then Talent Smart tested emotional agility alongside 33 other important workplace skills and found it to be the strongest predictor of performance, explaining a full 58% of success in all types of jobs. They said that 90% of top performers are high in EA compared to just 20% of bottom performers being high. I mean, that's staggering. The research showed that higher EA people make more money while also being happier and experiencing less negative stress. I mean, who doesn't want those things? According to the Center for Creative Leadership, 75% of careers are derailed for reasons related to emotional competencies, including the inability to handle interpersonal problems, unsatisfactory team leadership during times of difficulty or conflict, and the inability to adapt to change or elicit trust. And I wanted to just give one more that says one study revealed that increased emotional agility led to a 91% increase in employee engagement, which is a massive problem across the planet, according to Gallup, and a 167% increase in production quality. Gallup said that that increased engagement led to 59% lower turnover, 41% lower absenteeism, 40% fewer technical errors, 28% less employee theft, 29% higher profitability, and 17% higher productivity. So if there's not something in that mix that doesn't speak to you, then I guess there's no need to talk. But I would love to speak further. I'd love to share this emotional agility breakthrough program with anyone for $97. And just it's a way to dip your toe in the water and see what this really could mean for you.
Awesome. Great episode. And again, for anybody that's not subscribing to the Compass, whether it's on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, would love to have you do that. I share with Matthew often. We'll record these. We're kind of into the moment, like asking questions and having a good conversation. And I find myself going back and listening to this. It's really good content, regardless of kind of where you are. So I'm glad that you shared kind of the new program, a lot of the things that you're working through on the breakthrough side. And yeah, for everybody, learn more, People Plus Purpose. And until the next episode, Matthew, it's always a pleasure. So excited to keep this thing going.
Thank you, John. Appreciate you.